G'day Internet, welcome back to another video. Now I have a few interests, hobbies in my life, usually in competition with each other to try and send me to the poorhouse. My vintage computers are the most obvious one, and many of you will know that I'm also a bit of a toy collector. But the other thing that I really enjoy is listening to music, specifically on vinyl record. Now, I'm not going to try and get into the ins and outs of if it's better or worse or whatever it happens to be. I'm certainly no audiophile. But I do have a couple of turntables in the house. I've got a reasonably modern House of Marley that lives out in the lounge room. My main deck is an early 80s CDC or CEC, depending on where in the world you bought it, ST110, which is actually their base model turntable of the time, but I've put a new belt and cartridge and stuff on it, and I'm really happy with it. But it did get me thinking, what are one of these really, really cheap turntables that you can buy online actually like? So I set myself a bit of a challenge. I jumped on eBay Australia and went looking for a record player. Now, it had to be new, it had to be in stock in Australia, and it couldn't be one of these things, and I'm still not sure what one of these things actually are. So the cheapest I found was 69 Australian dollars plus shipping. I placed my order, and a few days later, this showed up. So let's get it out of the box and take a look. So this here is the Fenton RP105, also known as insert generic brand name here, generic model here. It is a fairly small little device. It's actually smaller than I thought it was going to be. It seems to have a wooden base and a plastic plinth. And if you know anything about these kinds of record players, that is a typical BSR knockoff mechanism. And unlike others, it is not suspended at all. That is absolutely rock hard. We have a plastic platen, straight tone arm. I'm guessing there's a spring under there for counterweight. A generic red stylus and cartridge, and that's kind of about it. It comes with a USB cable. I'm guessing this is powered via USB. It seems to be a small CD, which I'm assuming has got drivers, so if you want to record directly to your computer, you can, and a tiny little user manual. So for $69, that's what you get. But in reality though, let's see what it is actually like. I'll run some basic tests. We'll give it a listen, both ambient and plugged into my laptop so we can actually get an idea of the sound. And all in all, we'll just kind of see what it's like. So one of the first things I want to test on this is the tracking force of this needle. So if I put down my little set of scales and turn them on, give them a second to calibrate, and if we drop the needle onto the weight, we get 5.3534 grams, which is, needless to say, a bit on the heavy side. Now I do know that these particular cartridges or needles do track heavy. There's no doubt about that. But if we we'll give it a couple of tests. No, see, that's actually now tracking at 6.1. Let's just give it a wiggle and put it back down again. 5.2, right. So that's a bit on the heavy side. Normally speaking, something tracking that heavy is not a needle I would actually want to put down on any of my records, even taking into account that these cartridges do track heavy. So yeah, that's not a particularly great start. So the next thing I want to take a look at is the speed that this thing's actually spinning at. Now it's set to 33 1/3, which is kind of normal. And I actually need to pick up this. Some awful feedback coming through that. I don't know if it's because it's the phone or what. Anyway, so we have 34.24 RPM, which is 2.72% fast. Now, I'm not sure if you would actually hear that, but that's not particularly great either. And it's getting all kinds of weird feedback from my phone. So the whole point of this is obviously to play records. It's got its own little built-in speakers, so let's see how that sounds. Well, I think we can all agree, even not me just recording this into a microphone, that is terrible. I've heard tiny little AM transistor radios sound 100 times better than that. So the sound out of the built-in little speakers is obviously going to be terrible. It just is. But what does this record player sound like plugged into an amp and an actual set of speakers? Obviously a lot better. It's still not going to set the world on fire when it comes to sound quality, and I would guess that the biggest limiting factor here will be that very cheap cartridge, but it is a vast improvement over the sound coming out of the actual unit. So as one last test, let's record straight into the laptop. I'm using the USB connection, which according to the Windows 10 appears as a USB microphone. The record player's playing, so let's go record. Well, the first thing I can tell you is it's coming through as mono. So that is the Fenton RP105, the cheapest record player you can buy on eBay Australia. And can I recommend it? Oh, no. It has the tracking weight of an elephant. It runs too fast. The speakers are beyond awful, and the line-out quality is terrible. It does look kind of nice though. So what can you do instead of buying this? I know there's the old trope of you should go out and buy vintage and second hand, and there's actually quite a bit of truth to it. The problem is that the average person doesn't know that much about record players to go out and successfully buy one. But I beg of you, before you go out online and purchase something along these lines, find a friend, a neighbor, a family member, maybe a stray dog in the street that has at least some inkling about turntables to give you some advice and point you in the right direction. As an example, my CDC ST110 cost me $40 at the local recycling centre. Yes, I then had to put a belt and a new cartridge on it, but it is just mammothly better than this. And if you do feel the need to buy new, please at least step up to something along the lines of the Audio-Technica LP60. It's fully automatic, it sounds good from all the reports that I've read, and it's really easy to use. So that is my recommendation there. What am I going to do with this particular one? I'm actually not sure. I thought of maybe taking it into work and putting it in my office, but then I didn't think my colleagues would appreciate the crappy sound coming out of this. It could live here out in the garage, considering that the acoustics out here are terrible anyway, but I've got a million and other ways to play music out here, so that's it. For now though, it will probably just go back into the box and end up on the charity pile at some point. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. The channel is now on Patreon if you'd like to help support me, like these wonderful people just here. And until then, I will see you in the next one.